So, David and Goliath. It's a story we all know, right? I mean, the names themselves have become this universal symbol for the little guy beating the giant. But what if I told you that the way we usually think about this story, well, it kind of misses the whole point? We're going to dig into this, because hiding just beneath the surface of this famous tale is a really profound lesson about fear, faith, and where our strength truly comes from.
Yeah, our go-to version is that it's just a classic underdog story. Small guy beats the big guy, a simple tale of courage against, impossible odds. But the material we're looking at today says that if that's all we see, we're missing out on the most powerful message. This isn't just about human bravery. It's really a story about God showing up.
And this slide just lays it all out perfectly. The popular view? Simple. Small guy beats the big guy. But the deeper meaning, the one we're really unpacking here, is that this is a story where God's incredible power is put on display through someone who looks totally weak, completely unqualified. And you know what? That one little shift in perspective, it changes absolutely everything.
To really get it, we have to zoom out and see the bigger picture. This wasn't just some military standoff in a valley. For the nation of Israel, this was a full-blown spiritual crisis. Their entire army, all the way up to their king, was just frozen in fear. They had completely forgotten about the promises God had made to them.
And honestly, can you blame them? The source of all that fear was Goliath. According to the text, this guy was over 9 feet tall. Think about that. He wasn't just a big dude. He was a literal giant, basically engineered to be a walking weapon of terror. He was the embodiment of the overwhelming threat that Israel was facing.
But here's the twist. His size, his spear, his armor, none of that was his real weapon. What we learn is that Goliath's true weapon was intimidation. For 40 straight days, all he did was stand there and mock Israel. He was trying to crush their spirit long before any fighting started. It was pure psychological warfare, meant to make them feel utterly defeated and alone.
And then, into this scene of total paralysis, walks David. But here's the thing. His battle plan has nothing to do with military tactics or clever strategies. Nope, it's built on something else entirely. It's all about a radical, all-in trust in God.
And just look at David's resume here. I mean, he is the definition of unlikely. He's the youngest kid, totally overlooked by his own family. He's a shepherd, not a soldier. He literally shows up to the battle line delivering bread and cheese, not carrying a sword. But what nobody else knew was that he had already been secretly anointed by God. You see the pattern here? God consistently chooses the seemingly weak to show up the strong.
Now, this next part is maybe one of the most important moments in the whole story. King Saul offers David his own royal armor. We're talking the best protection money can buy. David puts it on, and then he takes it right off. This isn't just because it didn't fit right. It's a huge symbolic moment. He is actively rejecting the world solution, choosing instead to rely completely on God's protection. And that act of trust leads right into his big declaration just before the fight. The battle is the Lord's. Now, this isn't just some tough guy trash talk. It's a deep statement of faith. David is basically saying, this isn't about me. The victory is going to belong to God. And that right there is the source of all his courage.
What this all means is that David's victory was basically locked in before he even reached for a stone. He came to the fight prepared, not with swords and spears, but with these unconventional spiritual weapons that he had been sharpening his whole life.
So how did he do it? Well, first, he remembered. He looked back at how God had been faithful before, saving him from a lion and a bear. You see, those struggles weren't random. They were his training ground. Second, he spoke his faith out loud, declaring victory before it even happened. And third, he trusted in God's provision, calmly walking over to a stream and picking up 5 smooth stones. This wasn't self-confidence. This was God confidence.
But that little detail, it's always fascinated people, right? He only needed 1 stone to win the fight. So why pick up 5? Was he just grabbing a few backups, just in case? Well, the sources suggest there's a much, much deeper symbolic reason. And check out some of these incredible interpretations people have found over the centuries. Some scholars say the 5 stones represent the first 5 books of the Bible, God's law. Others see them as foreshadowing the 5 wounds of Christ. For thinkers like Aquinas, they represented 5 key virtues. The point is, the number 5 isn't an accident. It symbolizes a kind of divine completeness and preparation. So after the stone finds its mark, David does something really symbolic. He grabs Goliath's own enormous sword and uses it to finish the job. Now think about the power in that image. God doesn't just help you defeat your enemy.
He uses the enemy's own weapon against it, permanently silencing that voice of intimidation and accusation. The taunting is finally over.
Okay, so how on earth does this ancient story from thousands of years ago connect with us now? Let's take this incredible narrative and see how it applies to the giants we all face in our own lives. Because believe me, the principles are exactly the same.
Now, from a Christian perspective, this whole story is seen as what's called a prefigurement, basically a sneak peek of Jesus. David, the shepherd, points to Christ, the good shepherd. David, the anointed king, points to Christ, the true Messiah. And just like David fought alone to save his people, Christ would suffer alone to defeat the ultimate giants of sin and death for all of us.
So what does a Goliath look like today? Well, it's probably not a 9-foot-tall warrior. It's more likely that nagging voice of fear and anxiety, or maybe the overwhelming power of an addiction. It could be the heavy weight of guilt and shame, or financial strain, a broken relationship, even that feeling of being spiritually empty. These are the modern giants that try to intimidate us and paralyze us.
And this brings us right back to the single most important lesson from David's victory. When you're standing in front of your giant, it doesn't matter how big you are, how many resources you have, or what your past failures look like. None of that is the point. At the end of the day, what truly matters is the God who is standing there with you.
This whole story, then, becomes a kind of spiritual game plan for us. Step 1. Identify your Goliath. Give a name to the thing that intimidates you the most. Step 2. Stop trying to use the world's armor, things like anger or pride, and start using God's weapons: prayer, scripture, and simple trust. And finally, just like David, start speaking words of faith over your situation.
So, that leaves us with one last question to really think about. After everything we've seen here, what is the giant in your life that you can start to face? Not with your own strength, but with that quiet, unshakable God confidence that David showed us all those years ago.